So I just want to show you guys, I'm in Korea in Busan, and we actually have protest signs against Trump. You can see it right behind me there. So this is the from behind, and then this is the one also in the distance. So I was actually really surprised to see this today. This was in my neighborhood. We saw it right after lunch. The signs say basically, if we follow Trump, go with his demands of $350 billion in cash, we'll have a financial crisis here in Korea. This one says, like, you know, Trump's a robber slash thief. We don't want to be a colony of his, essentially. And basically, Trump, if you don't know, he's demanding cash up front from Korea, $350 billion. And then from Japan, $550 billion for like, what, $900 billion total. Every time I say it, it just sounds so stupid, but that's who, you know, we're dealing with. We're talking about USA. And essentially, Japan and Korea have both exposed Trump as being a fraud, and I'll explain in a moment here. First, this was public opinion data saying, hey, Koreans, should we give the $350 billion to Trump? 80% are like, no, let's don't do that. 12% did say it's acceptable, okay. And, you know, the question always is like, who are these people that are saying the 12%? A lot of people are questioning that, and I'll get into that, but basically there is a sort of MAGA type people here in Korea. It's a cult, just the same way MAGA is a cult in USA. Let me show you guys this. This is comments coming in from regular Koreans. They say, those who say it is acceptable, give up all your assets, right? So you think it's okay to give Trump the $350 billion, you pay. 12.4% are on standby for a telephone poll of a specific religious group. Basically, again, the MAGA type people here in Korea are the same as MAGA in USA. It's like a cult, religious type cult. Those who are acceptable, meaning you want to pay Trump's thing, send them at your own expense, right? You can give Trump your money. I'm so surprised it's not 100%. What country are you from? Which I actually agree with, like the people who wants to pay Trump's extortion. Like, who are these people? But it's not just me. And also too, I like to share with you guys, if you feel like things are going crazy in USA, it's just good to know that around the world, there are people with you also, meaning that many people around the world know that Trump's an idiot. I think we can all see it. And it's actually, that is the majority of the world. It's just there are pockets of, you know, crazies in every country, right? Be it the MAGAs in USA, MAGAs in Korea, and there's also sort of MAGA type people in Japan. This is more comments. Japan's secret agreement. I was suspicious. China's plunder of history, the U.S. economic plunder, disgusting. And I'll get into this, but there's a bit of conspiracy theories going around whether or not Japan and USA is trying to basically, you know, do some sort of scam on Korea. Here's another person. It's not just unfair. This is plunder, referring to Trump. 80% of the people, let's unite. Here's another one. It's shocking that the opinions that say it's acceptable, it should be 100%, meaning that, you know, 100% of Koreans should be going against Trump. This is what Trump's putting on his social media, like weird AI videos of putting MAGA hats on, was it Hakeem Jeffries? And then just a few hours ago, he's got this really bizarre one of like the Grim Reaper going through Congress and such, attacking Democrats. Seriously, this is on Trump's social media, weird AI stuff. And then he's got a song about how Russ Vought, I think his name is, he's the Project 2025 guy who's planning to basically fire as many people as he can in the government. And so I guess Trump, and then there's JD Vance playing the drums, is celebrating firing people, right? He wields the pen, blah, blah, blah. Here comes the Reaper. These people are sick, right? And they show Dems as being babies. Okay, money. What are we doing here? I just laugh because this is so stupid. And then you have this. This is actually, again, Korean news talking about the USA, and they quote American farmers. Watch this.
이후 처음이라고 전했습니다.
Currently, 25% of our soybeans grown in the United States, or if you see a soybean field, 1 out of every 4 rows of soybeans goes to China. Right now, China has purchased 0 soybeans.
And so basically, we've been talking about the soybean thing, as you guys know. I mean, these farmers are really struggling. Trump screwed up trade relations with China. And the funniest crap, my wife was laughing out loud at Scott Bessent today, because I showed her this, and basically Scott Bessent's just like, oh, well, if China's not going to buy our soybeans, hey, we got no problem. We can find other buyers. But it's like, is what my wife said, and I'm just telling you the truth. You can't easily find buyers to replace the volume that China purchases, right? China's a massive country. Like, who else can fill that void? I mean, say if we try to get Korea to buy, we just can't buy as much as China. We're not as big. You know, France can't buy as much as China, right? They're not as big. And then there was this interesting text message that Scott Bessent got, and they were actually translating it here in Korea. The basic gist of it is that USA screwed up and USA is screwed when it comes to China. See, they're translating the text. If you don't know this story, the basic gist of it is that the USA is bailing out Argentina, and then Argentina then sells cheap soybeans to China, which basically screws American farmers. This was the headlines here. Leak text on Scott Bessent's phone suggests the White House got played bailing out Argentina, and that's $20 billion to Argentina. And I'm still wondering, like, is that the plan of Trump? Is it, extort money from Korea and Japan and then give it to your buddies in Argentina or wherever? And then it says U.S. soy farmers are facing are the casualties. This was the actual text that Scott Bessent was, leaked out from his own, PDA phone thing. Finally, just a heads up. Again, this is the text. Finally, just a heads up. I'm getting more intel, but this is highly unfortunate. This is a text. We bailed out Argentina yesterday, and in return, the Argentinas are removing their export tariffs on grains, reducing their price, and sold a bunch of soybeans to China at a time when we would normally be selling to China, right? So Argentina is selling and USA is not. Soy prices are dropping further because of it. This gives China more leverage on us. And then another text message on a plane, but Scott, I can tell you when I land. So basically, they're admitting, behind the scenes that they totally are getting screwed. They got played by Argentina, and it's been in our news here in Korea. Here's some more comments from regular Koreans. It's always fun to share this stuff with you guys. This person says, if we investigate the fact that the amount of money the U.S. is ripping off is over 80% of our foreign exchange reserves, and that the IMF foreign exchange crisis will occur again, the figure will be 90%, meaning that people who should be against Trump should be higher, right? Those who say it's acceptable, meaning pay Trump's extortion, for those who say it's acceptable are the ones who would allow the IMF crisis to explode. Aren't they Koreans? Are our country's conservatives not patriotic conservatives, but traitorous conservatives, right? So it's kind of a similar dynamic. The conservative, say in Korea or say in Japan, or again like your MAGA, and basically the boils down to, do you want to be buddies with Trump or not? The prior person, President Yoon, which I did several videos on during his arrest and impeachment. I encourage you to watch that stuff to catch up on a bit of Korean history, but this is something that has been a long running thing in Korea where there's certainly going to be corruption, it exists in every country, but it's different here in Korea because of the long history of it. People are very sensitive to those kind of things, and people take the streets immediately and do it peacefully because you see the path that it goes down if you let people like Trump control for too long. And essentially my opinion on this stuff is, as Korea progresses further, and many countries progress further, the younger people, as long as you teach history, and that's the important thing, won't repeat mistakes of the past. So this is where you're seeing these big pushback against Trump. And like I said, it's hard to explain where, in my neighborhood, we even got anti-Trump signs up there. And it's like, what the heck is this? Here's another one. It says the investment demand itself is theft. Again, that's a demand from Trump. Here's another one. Japan's lump sum investment has also been exposed as a hoax. We must not fall for this scheme by both countries to exploit our country. Another Korean says, people who haven't experienced the IMF crisis are probably thinking about something like the coronavirus, but it's a dozen times more difficult. Another person, where did all the people who said I should have signed come from, basically, like who's agreeing with Trump? Is this some kind of modern day tribute demand? And another person says, those who can't afford it, give it to them with their money. Go live in the U.S. It's time to unite and condemn America's theft. We must protect our country. We shouldn't be suckers who rip off our allies. And it's kind of funny. And the way, I know, say, the Georgia person, if you guys saw my videos on the Hyundai situation, where some people in USA just think everybody wants to live in USA and everyone wants to live in rural Georgia, but it's just not the case. And this person's kind of making a joke of like, if you want to pay Trump's tribute or Trump's extortion, you give them the money, you go live in USA, that kind of stuff. So it's a test on, where's your loyalty? Is it to the home country or to Trump? Here's another person. 12% of the population donate all your wealth, sell your house, sell your land, and donate to the USA. Another person, our people stick together in times like this. Here's another. The president and the government must respond rationally, referring to Korea, but the people must voice their anger at the United States and its madmen. And it's important to always mention that, Koreans are well aware that there's a MAGA faction in USA and then another faction. So, it's good that they'll talk about the madmen of Korea, of a USA. Another person says, wow, 2 out of 10 citizens are traitors, meaning like you want to pay Trump's extortion. That's less than I thought. I thought it would be 3. And yes, the Yoon, the former president, again, it's like a MAGA cult. And so to illustrate why Koreans are talking about Japan is because it came out in the news recently that Japan's basically, Trump will give you a 1 to 2% of what you ask. And remember, Trump is asking $550 billion from Japan cash up front, the same way that he's asking from Koreans. And actually, I'll show you this here. Koreans saying we'll do 5%, right? And it's, hardly what Trump wants, of course. These are some comments regarding the thing. It's actually kind of interesting. It shows the dynamics between the multiple countries here. Quote from a Korean person: Japan was just pretending to do motions, but the real tearing down was Korea. I'm so angry. So people feel like that it was all a lie where Trump said Japan's giving all this money and then expected Korea to match, right? But it ends up being a sham, as Japan is saying 1 to 2%. Another person says, if we had believed the Americans and signed, Japan would have paid almost no cash, and we have had to pay a huge amount of cash, which have caused the IMF to come, and we would have lost good companies and technologies to the U.S., Japan, and other countries. Another person says, ultimately, Korea was the target. They were trying to exploit Korea's technological prowess. Another person says, the plan was the U.S. and Japan to completely rip off Korea, bring about the IMF crisis, and devour Korean companies. And this is just the reality. There is major competition between Japanese companies, Korea companies, and also Chinese companies, which isn't mentioned in these comments, but because we're talking about Japan at the moment. But if you guys know anything about, say, we'll just talk about cars. In Japan, they got, say, Honda and Toyota. Korea's got Kia and Hyundai, as you guys know. And there's major competitions between those, the same way that China's got BYD up and coming. And I can't speak to Europe, but I'd be curious, say, in Europe, if you'd say there's major competition between like a Skoda or Peugeot or Renault, and then say like, a Volkswagen and, what BMW or Mercedes. I'd just be curious the European perspective. And I'll just say, again, in Asia, it's majorly competitive. And many people, and say in Japan, are sort of, that's the right word to say, I don't know if shame's the right word, we'll just say unhappy that Korea's leapfrogged against Japan recently. There is a faction of Japanese that don't like Korea leapfrogging. That's a good way to put it. Here's more comments from Korea. Why the conspiracy theory that U.S. and Japan are trying to divide up Korea through a secretive agreement is persuasive. Another one, all this time Japan has been watching, hoping that Korea will fall. Another person, he got caught trying to commit international fraud. That's referring to Trump. I think our president is smart, referring to President Lee. To put it simply, another person, it's a plot by the U.S. and Japan to take over our country. And another person writes, ultimately, the U.S. was trying to steal all Korea's technology, semiconductors, shipbuilding, batteries at a low price. If South Korea foolishly signed the deal, leading to a foreign exchange crisis, Japan either knew all this and turned a blind eye to it, hoping for a payoff, or even more accurately, the U.S. and Japan conspired to destroy the Korean economy. And you can see in Korean comments, it's very different than if you go over Fox News or whatever, where people don't understand anything. It's just really, really different. Koreans are well attuned to these kind of things. International relations is a much bigger deal outside the USA than it is inside. Oftentimes, many Americans think that USA is the only country in the whole world. I'll just tell you the truth, it's not. And if you go to other places, and I think Europe's kind of same, where Europeans are well aware that there are other countries around the world. That's why I mentioned, say, the European thing with the Skodas or the Peugeots or the Renaults. And I'm just talking about various cars in Europe. And if there's competition over there, it'd be kind of interesting. In this current situation, anyone who demands money can be considered a traitor. If you know anyone like that around you, give them a good hard swearing. So Koreans are pissed off about this stuff, right? And rightfully so. And they're saying, if you're siding with Trump, tell that family member to swear at them. It was so strange that Japan signed this ridiculous slave contract. Yet the Japanese media didn't criticize it, and even the Liberal Democratic Party generally said it was a good agreement. So that's what's going on with Japan, Korea, and also China as it relates to soybeans. I'd like to hear your points of view on this stuff. And again, you're not alone. If you don't like Trump, I promise you, you're not alone. You're in good company. I do appreciate your time, and I'll catch you all in the next video.